The planet Zyrathia gleamed under the light of its twin suns, its cities stretching like silver webs across the jagged mountains and crystal rivers. It was a world of incredible beauty and complexity, ruled by the strong and proud King Valor. He had built his empire over decades, making it one of the most respected and feared in the galaxy. Yet despite all his achievements, the king carried a secret frustration, a problem that no amount of wealth or power could fix. His daughter, Princess Lyra, was his pride and his sorrow. She was young, intelligent, and graceful, yet she bore the cruel title that haunted her family, the infertile princess. Despite all the medical advances on Zyrathia and countless treatments, no method had allowed her to conceive. The king had spent a fortune, but his people whispered behind closed doors, wondering how the royal bloodline could continue if the princess remained childless. Princess Lyra had learned to hide her sadness behind polite smiles and careful manners. She wandered the palace halls quietly, avoiding the endless ceremonies and courtly debates. She loved her father, but she knew his disappointment weighed on her even if he never spoke it aloud. She felt alone, trapped in a life where everyone expected her to fulfill a destiny she feared she could never reach. It was during one of the great celebrations of the Intergalactic Alliance that Captain Ethan arrived. A human, tall, confident, and unassuming, he entered the palace with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Humans were rare in the courts of Zyrathia, often underestimated, their contributions dismissed as primitive. But Ethan had a mind sharp enough to navigate any court intrigue, and a courage that sometimes surprised even seasoned diplomats. From the first moment Lyra saw him, she noticed something unusual. Unlike the alien nobles, he did not glance at her with pity or condescension. He treated her as if she were simply another person in the room, worthy of respect. She found herself watching him, curious and unsettled, wondering why his presence stirred something she could not explain. The day after the ceremony, Lyra found herself in the palace garden seeking a quiet moment alone. The garden was a labyrinth of bioluminescent plants, shimmering with colors that seemed impossible on any other planet. As she walked along the winding paths, she did not expect to encounter anyone. But there, near a fountain of flowing crystal water, stood Ethan, examining the exotic flora with a careful, thoughtful expression. "Princess," he said gently when he saw her, bowing with a human courtesy that felt strangely formal in the alien setting. "I hope I am not disturbing you." Lyra shook her head. "Not at all," she replied. "I come here to escape the crowd and the expectations." Ethan nodded as if he understood entirely. "I can see why. It is beautiful here, yet peaceful solitude is hard to find in a place like this." They walked together through the gardens, speaking cautiously at first, sharing polite observations about the plants, the suns, and the palace architecture. Slowly, the conversation deepened. Lyra found herself speaking of her fears and frustrations, of the medical treatments that had failed, of the whispers in the court, and of her longing to be more than what her condition allowed her to be. Ethan listened quietly, never interrupting, never judging. He only offered simple, practical suggestions or stories of human resilience, tales of survival and innovation, of people achieving the impossible when others doubted them. His words were not magical, but they had a power that Lyra had not expected. For the first time in years, she felt seen, understood, and valued not for her title, but for who she truly was. As the suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the garden, Lyra realized that their time together had changed something within her. She felt hope, a fragile new hope that perhaps her destiny could be rewritten. Ethan, too, had noticed the change. He had been sent to Zyrathia as a diplomat, not a miracle worker. But seeing Lyra's pain, her courage, and her intelligence, he wondered if humanity could offer more than words. He had studied advanced human medical procedures, some experimental, that could sometimes solve the most difficult infertility cases. On a sudden impulse, he shared the idea with her. "I know this may sound impossible," he said carefully, "but humans have methods different from anything here. They might work for you. It is risky and it is untested for your kind, but it could give you a chance." Lyra's heart raced. She had heard every proposal and procedure imaginable, yet none had worked. And here was a human, offering a solution she could barely believe. She hesitated, fear and hope wrestling within her. "And you would help me?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled, A simple, warm expression. If you want me to, yes. I will help you. No one should be defined by what they cannot do, Princess. You deserve a choice. After long discussion and careful consideration, Lyra agreed. The procedure was delicate, requiring both alien and human expertise. Weeks passed as Ethan prepared, learning everything about Lyra's physiology, combining Zyrathian science with human innovation. Finally, the day came when the procedure would be performed. The palace was filled with tension, yet Lyra remained composed, drawing strength from Ethan's calm presence. The procedure was successful. When Lyra learned she was pregnant, she could hardly believe it. Her emotions overflowed. Joy, relief, and wonder mingled with a deep gratitude toward Ethan. She was carrying a child, a life that was part human and part Zyrathian, a symbol of possibility and change. News of the pregnancy spread quickly through the palace, and reactions were immediate. The king, when he first heard, was silent. His mind raced, torn between pride and fury. He had feared infertility for so long, but the idea that a human, a foreigner, had now contributed to his royal line filled him with anger. Court advisors whispered among themselves, speculating about scandal, betrayal, and the future of the kingdom. Lyra, aware of the storm she had ignited, remained resolute. She knew that her child represented more than a union between human and alien. It represented hope, courage, and the potential for a new era. She held her head high, knowing that fear would not govern her life or her child's future. Ethan, for his part, did not flinch. He understood the political danger he faced, but he also knew that he had acted with honor. His loyalty was to Lyra and the life growing inside her. He navigated the court's treacherous waters with intelligence and calm, using his human skills of diplomacy to gain allies quietly among the palace staff and even some members of the council. The days that followed were tense but filled with small, meaningful victories. Lyra's health improved, and the child developed with extraordinary vitality. The palace began to notice her strength and resilience, her ability to lead quietly even while carrying the future heir. Whispers turned to admiration in some corners. Humans, once considered weak and inferior, could, it seemed, contribute something remarkable to Zyrathia. The king, however, remained conflicted. He could not ignore the undeniable bond forming between Lyra and Ethan, nor the vitality of the unborn child. But he struggled to accept the human's role in his royal lineage. His anger simmered beneath the surface, a storm waiting to erupt, and the court waited anxiously for his decision. Despite the tension, Lyra found joy in her growing connection with Ethan. They spent hours in the palace gardens, discussing their dreams, the future, and the possibilities their child might bring. They laughed, planned, and sometimes simply sat in silence, feeling the warmth of the twin suns on their faces. For the first time, Lyra felt truly alive, her spirit unburdened by the weight of expectations. Yet the shadow of the king's anger loomed. Court members debated, rival nobles plotted, and the galaxy watched silently. Lyra and Ethan knew that the path ahead would not be easy. Danger, politics, and the unknown of interspecies heritage threatened their peace at every turn. But they were determined to face it together, united by courage, hope, and the new life that symbolized both. The first part of their journey ended with Lyra standing in the palace balcony, looking out over the city as the twin suns set. Ethan stood beside her, silent but steady. She felt the life growing inside her and knew that this child was more than a gift, it was a promise. And though the king's wrath and the court's scrutiny loomed, Lyra and Ethan were ready. They would face whatever came next, together, and prove that courage, unity, and love could change even the oldest traditions. The days in the palace grew tense as the news of Princess Lyra's pregnancy spread beyond the private walls of the gardens and chambers. Servants whispered in corridors, advisors exchanged cautious glances, and nobles debated what it meant for the kingdom. The hybrid child growing inside Lyra was unprecedented, a union between human and Zyrathian that no one had expected. Even the most forward-thinking scholars and scientists in the court could not predict the potential of this new life. King Valor remained outwardly calm, but inside, his anger simmered. A human, an outsider, had inserted himself into the royal bloodline. His advisors had suggested many ways to deal with the situation, some mild, some extreme. But Valor could not ignore the fact that the child represented strength, intelligence, and a chance to unite two worlds. It made his anger sharper, twisting it into a mixture of fear and reluctant admiration. Ethan, aware of the king's temper, did not retreat. He had grown close to Lyra, not just as a companion but as a protector. He understood the stakes and knew that he had to act with honor, courage, and intelligence if he wanted to help Lyra, their child, and even the kingdom itself. Quietly, he began demonstrating human skills that Zerathians had underestimated for centuries. He advised on defense strategies, introduced innovations in agriculture, and helped the palace medical team improve their techniques. Small successes began to change the opinions of some court members. Lyra's pregnancy progressed rapidly, showing remarkable vitality. The hybrid child was strong, and even the most skeptical doctors admitted that the unborn life seemed extraordinary. Lyra herself displayed unexpected resilience, attending council meetings, walking through the palace gardens, and managing the routines of the royal court. Her confidence and grace inspired others, including humans and Zerathians alike. Despite these advances, the king remained wary. One afternoon, he called Ethan into his private chambers, a room lined with ornate symbols of Zerathia's power. The air was heavy, the silence almost suffocating. "You have brought change to my daughter's life," Valor said finally, his voice low and measured, "and to my kingdom. Do you understand the danger you have placed yourself in?" Ethan stood tall, meeting the king's gaze without fear. "I understand, Your Majesty, but I have acted with honesty and respect. I have done nothing to harm the kingdom or the princess. All I have done is offer hope where there was none." The king's eyes narrowed. "Hope or defiance? You have crossed a line, human. My advisors argue that your presence here threatens the royal bloodline itself. Yet, I cannot ignore what you have achieved. You have proven yourself useful in ways even I could not foresee." Ethan nodded. "Then let my actions speak for themselves. I will continue to serve, not because I wish to claim a title, but because I care for Lyra and the life she carries. That child is not a threat. It is a promise for the future." Valor's expression softened slightly, though his pride still resisted full acceptance. "We shall see," he said finally, dismissing Ethan. But for the first time, a seed of respect was planted, fragile yet undeniable. Meanwhile, the court was buzzing with speculation. Rival noble families seeking advantage whispered about scandal and the mixing of human and Zerathian blood. They questioned the child's legitimacy, the future of the throne, and even Lyra's judgment. Yet others began to admire her courage. The princess, who had been labeled infertile, now carried a child unlike any Zerathia had ever known, a symbol of possibility, a bridge between species. As tensions simmered, an unexpected threat emerged. A faction of rival aliens, long jealous of Zerathia's wealth and power, plotted an invasion. They saw the internal discord over the princess's pregnancy as the perfect opportunity to strike. Their fleet approached silently, cloaked in advanced stealth technology, aiming to take the kingdom by surprise. Lyra and Ethan were among the first to sense the danger. Ethan, drawing on human tactical knowledge, quickly devised a defense plan. He coordinated the palace's defense systems, trained soldiers in new strategies, and predicted enemy movements with precision. Lyra, despite her pregnancy, moved through the palace with determination, rallying guards and supporting her people. Her calm, commanding presence reassured everyone that their leaders would protect them. When the enemy fleet struck, the battle was fierce. The Zerathian defenses, combined with Ethan's strategic insight, held strong. He led small units into critical points, sabotaging enemy vessels and creating confusion among the attackers. The hybrid child growing inside Lyra became a symbol of hope for everyone in the palace. The unborn life represented unity, courage, and the strength to endure. After hours of conflict, the enemy retreated, their plans thwarted by the human captain and the determined princess. The court, witnessing Ethan's bravery firsthand, began to change its perspective. Humans were no longer primitive outsiders. They were capable, intelligent, and courageous. Some advisors who had been critical now openly praised Ethan's actions. In the aftermath of the battle, King Valor called another private meeting. This time his demeanor was different, still stern but tempered with a newfound respect. "You have proven yourself beyond words," he said to Ethan, "not only in your care for my daughter but in your defense of our people. You have shown strength, courage, and loyalty. I cannot ignore that." Ethan bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. My loyalty will always be to Lyra, to the child, and to the kingdom's well-being. Valor's gaze shifted to his daughter. Lyra, you have defied expectations, carried life against the odds, and inspired this court. You have shown me that courage and love can change the course of a kingdom. I still struggle with the idea of a human contributing to our bloodline, yet I cannot deny the truth before my eyes. Lyra stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on her father's arm. Father, I understand your fear, but this child is not a threat. It is a chance to unite, to grow stronger, and to prove that the future is not defined by the past. Valor took a deep breath. Perhaps you are right. The court will need time to accept it, and I must decide how to guide this kingdom. But for now, I will not stand against you or Ethan. The child is our heir, and we will protect them together. The tension in the palace began to ease. Nobles who had opposed the union saw the bravery, intelligence, and strength displayed by Ethan and Lyra. Slowly, admiration replaced suspicion. Whispers of scandal were replaced by discussions of hope and possibility. The hybrid child had become a symbol, not of fear, but of the courage to embrace the unknown. In the quiet moments, Lyra and Ethan reflected on their journey. They walked together through the palace gardens where their story had truly begun. The twin suns cast long golden shadows across the bioluminescent plants, and the crystal fountains glimmered in the fading light. I never imagined it would be like this, Lyra said softly. A child, a kingdom, and yet somehow it feels right. Ethan smiled. Life is full of surprises. Sometimes the impossible becomes possible when people dare to act with courage and hope. Your child, our child, is proof of that. Lyra rested her hand on her growing belly. I hope they will grow up knowing both our worlds, that they can be strong, wise, and compassionate. They will, Ethan said firmly, because they have both of us and the courage of an entire kingdom behind them. The story of the infertile princess who became a human's gift spread across Zerathia and beyond. Scholars debated the implications of the hybrid child. Diplomats marveled at the cooperation between species, and citizens whispered about the bravery of those who had faced fear with intelligence and honor. King Valor, though still proud and stern, had learned a valuable lesson. Strength was not limited to bloodlines or species. Courage, loyalty, and the willingness to embrace the unknown could shape the future more than tradition ever could. As Lyra's pregnancy continued, the palace prepared for the arrival of the heir. Guards, advisors, and scientists worked together, ensuring the child would be born safely and raised in a world that could now accept both human and Zerathian heritage. The kingdom faced challenges, yes, but it also faced a future filled with hope. In the final moments of Part 2, Lyra and Ethan stood on the balcony once more, looking at the twin suns as they set in perfect alignment. The sky was painted with colors that seemed impossible, shimmering like a promise. Lyra rested her hand on her belly, feeling the gentle movements of the life within her. We did it, she whispered. Yes, Ethan replied, holding her hand. And this is only the beginning. The palace, the kingdom, and even the galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. A human and an alien princess had defied expectations, united in courage and love, and brought forth a life that promised to change everything. The king's anger had not vanished entirely, but respect and understanding had replaced much of it. The heir would grow to symbolize the power of unity, the courage to face the impossible, and the hope that even the most unlikely gift could bring a brighter future. And for Lyra and Ethan, the journey was only beginning. A life together bound by love, courage, and a shared vision for a world that dared to embrace the impossible.